Okay, so let's dive into all this stuff about surviving a zombie apocalypse that you sent over.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's got a plan for when the zombies show up.
Well, I mean, we've got these preparedness guides,
Okay.
people sharing how they think they'd survive, like their whole strategy articles about how zombies are like a metaphor for actual disasters.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And then there's even a Girl Scout program
Maybe.
about zombie preparedness.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It really is fascinating how this whole zombie thing,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of touched on everything from practical survival skills
Yeah.
all the way to like the psychology of dealing with these scary situations.
Right, like how do we actually react when things go bad?
Exactly.
So I guess the question is, are we becoming zombie survival experts now? I'm not sure I'm ready to face a horde just yet, but...
Well, I don't think that's really the goal here,
All
right?
Great.
I think it's more about taking this
Yeah.
fun thought experiment and figuring out how it can actually help us in real emergencies.
Yeah, to actually navigate those situations.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one thing that really caught my eye was
Yeah.
this unique approach that the CDC took back in 2011,
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
where they actually used a zombie theme
That's right.
to promote emergency preparedness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a government agency using zombies to teach people about getting ready for a disaster.
It was kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
It seems a little out there.
Well, they had this blog post, that went viral.
Yeah.
They had a graphic novel and even a video contest. It's pretty wild.
It was a big deal, for sure.
Yeah.
But did it actually work?
Well, I mean, it definitely grabbed people's attention.
Yeah.
Their website actually crashed from all the traffic.
Really?
Yeah, it was that popular. But there was this study, that looked at it
Oh,
and found that while people really enjoyed the zombie material,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't actually retain
Ew.
the preparedness information as well as they did
Wow.
with like more straightforward presentations. Interesting. So maybe the zombies were a bit of a distraction.
It makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
About like using humor
Yeah.
and fear-based messaging, especially when it comes to something as serious as public health.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right?
Absolutely.
You want to engage people, but you also want to make sure that they actually get the message and remember it.
That's right.
Yeah. But okay, let's say for a minute that the zombie apocalypse is actually happening.
Okay. Yeah.
What practical survival tips did you find in all this stuff? Like, what do we need to know?
Well, a lot of these skills and supplies that they talked about for surviving a zombie apocalypse are actually really similar
Okay.
to what you would need for any kind of disaster,
Oh.
like hurricanes, earthquakes,
Yeah.
pandemics, you name it.
So I guess the CDC isn't totally off base with their whole zombie campaign.
No, not at all. They actually, in both their zombie material and their regular preparedness guides, they highlight the importance of this thing called a shelter-in-place kit,
Shelter in place? Yeah.
where you have enough supplies to last you for at least 72 hours.
72 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Why that specific time frame? Is there like a logic to that?
Well, think of it as like a buffer.
Okay.
It might take that long for emergency services to actually reach you,
Right.
for the roads to be cleared, for the immediate danger to pass, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having enough to be self-sufficient in those first few days.
Okay, so you're on your own basically for those first 3 days.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what should be in this kit then, besides, the obvious things like food and water?
Yeah, well, think beyond the basics, right?
Okay.
First aid is critical, of course,
Mhm.
but also things like sanitation supplies,
What?
tools, and even, entertainment to help you manage stress and boredom.
That's a good point.
And, think about your specific needs.
Yeah.
Like, do you have pets?
Right.
Young children?
Yeah.
Those factors are going to influence your kit.
It's not one size fits all.
No, not at all.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned this go bag too, right? Like
Right.
in addition to the shelter in place kit.
Yeah.
Is this where we get into the zombie specific stuff?
Not necessarily, no.
yeah.
A go bag is essential for any situation where you might need to evacuate quickly.
Oh.
So imagine like a fire,
Mm-hmm.
a chemical spill,
Yeah.
or even a horde of zombies at your doorstep.
Right. Grab it and go.
Yeah, you grab your go bag and you go.
Okay. That makes sense. So what kind of things would we pack in this go bag
Okay.
that are different from the shelter in place kit?
Well, it's more about like portability
Okay.
and your immediate needs,
Nice.
So,
Right.
so think like a first aid kit that's focused on trauma.
Yeah.
A sturdy knife,
Mm-hmm.
a reliable water filter,
Okay.
a map of your area
Oh, yeah.
in case technology fails.
Right. Like your phone dies or something.
Exactly.
Oh.
And weather appropriate clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that might surprise you is duct tape.
Duct tape. Really? Is that to, like, patch up any bite marks? I'm just kidding. But seriously, why duct tape?
You would be amazed at how versatile duct tape is.
Okay.
I mean, you can repair gear with it.
Yeah.
You can create a splint, secure a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
You can even make a makeshift weapon out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic survival tool for a reason.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here.
Yeah.
You've got me thinking I need to add some duct tape to my emergency kit now.
It's never a bad idea to be prepared.
That's true. And speaking of being prepared, where you are can have a big impact on your chances of survival, too.
Location, right?
One of the experts that you sent over, an emergency management professor, they were arguing that rural areas might actually be safer than urban areas during a zombie apocalypse, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, it's not what you'd expect.
No, wouldn't the city have more resources?
Right.
More people to potentially help?
That's what you'd think, yeah. But the thing is, cities have much higher population densities.
That's true.
Which means more potential zombies.
Right, more people to become zombies.
Exactly.
Okay.
And rural areas have more space, fewer people, and often better access to natural resources.
Right, like water and firewood and things like that.
Exactly.
Okay, so I guess it's about thinking strategically.
Yeah.
Less competition for resources, more room to spread out. But wouldn't access to medical care be a problem in a rural area?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah, especially in a long-term crisis.
Yeah, but you have to consider the trade-offs, right?
Right.
Urban areas might have more infrastructure and resources initially.
At the start.
But those resources could become overwhelmed pretty quickly.
That's true.
In a large-scale disaster.
So it's about weighing the risks and benefits of each location.
Exactly.
It's making me realize there's a lot more to this whole zombie survival thing than I initially thought.
Yeah, it's not just about, fighting off hordes.
Right.
It's more about using your brain to assess the situation and make smart decisions.
Right, being adaptable.
Exactly.
And I feel like this mental aspect of preparedness is just as important as the physical stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to dig into that more right after this.
Definitely. One thing that really stood out to me in all this stuff is how this whole zombie apocalypse thing kind of forces us to face our fears.
Right.
But in a way that's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
And empowering,
You're confronting these fears, but it's not real.
Exactly.
It's almost like a mental fire drill.
Yeah, like a practice run.
For dealing with the unexpected.
Right.
So it's not just about having the right gear. It's about having the right mindset, too.
Absolutely.
Another thing I noticed in all the research you sent over was how important community and collaboration is.
Yeah, it seems like almost every source talked about that.
Yeah, it kind of seems counterintuitive, You think about surviving a zombie apocalypse, and you picture, lone wolves fending for themselves.
Right. Every man for himself.
But these sources paint a different picture.
They really highlight how important it is to have a network of people you can trust, people you can rely on.
For support resources?
Yeah, for emotional support, for sharing resources, for planning.
Planning, too.
Yeah, the lone wolf thing just doesn't really work.
Right, especially long term.
No, not at all.
So it's not just about individual survival, it's about collective resilience.
Exactly, it's about the group.
And it's a good reminder that even in a crisis, we're not meant to be alone.
We need each other.
We do.
Yeah.
But it's not just about having a bunch of people, right?
No, it's about trust.
Trust and shared values.
It makes you think about how we build and maintain those bonds, especially in those high-stress situations.
Let's be real. Just because there's a zombie apocalypse doesn't mean everyone's going to suddenly become a saint.
Right, exactly. Trust has to be earned, and you have to keep reevaluating it.
Especially when resources are scarce.
Absolutely.
And tensions are high.
Yeah, that's when things get really tough.
Okay, so we've talked about the practical survival tips, the location, the mental and social stuff.
Right.
But I gotta say, one of the things I always love about zombie stories is the creativity of the survival strategies.
The plans,
The plans, and you sent me some real gems.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Some of them were pretty wild.
Give me an example, Sprman. Don't leave me hanging.
Well, one person suggested holding up in an IKEA.
An IKEA? Really?
Yeah, apparently they've got solar roofs, plenty of wood to burn, and those giant parking lots could be turned into farmland.
And all the Swedish meatballs you could eat, right?
Right, exactly. But I'm not sure how long those would last.
Probably not very long. I mean, it's a fun idea, but how realistic is it? Wouldn't a place like that be overrun pretty quickly?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Right.
It depends on what kind of zombies we're dealing with.
Right.
Where the IKEA is, what kind of defenses you can set up.
Right.
But even if it's not a perfect solution, it gets you thinking outside the box.
Right. Thinking creatively, yeah.
Exactly.
What else? What other ideas did people have?
Well, someone else suggested heading to a remote island.
Okay.
And living off the land.
Oh, the classic survivalist approach.
Right. And this person was actually a sailor.
Oh, wow.
And a fisherman.
Okay.
So they felt pretty confident in their ability to survive.
Yeah, in that kind of environment.
Yeah, I can see the appeal, you know?
Cut off from the mainland, surrounded by water, a natural food source. It's like a zombie-proof paradise.
At least in theory.
In theory, yeah. But, I mean, even the most remote island isn't completely safe.
No, you still have to worry about things like storms, illnesses,
survivors.
Even...
Right, other people could be a problem.
Exactly. It reminds us that there's no perfect solution. Yeah. No matter how prepared you are.
Speaking of uncertainty, let's shift gears for a second and talk about how we can apply this whole zombie survival mindset to real-world emergencies.
Right, because as fun as it is to imagine fighting off zombies, we're much more likely to face things like natural disasters or pandemics.
Right, the real threats.
Exactly. And while the specific threats might be different, the basic principles of preparedness and resilience are pretty similar.
So this stuff we've been talking about, like having a plan, building a kit, knowing your environment, strengthening your community.
Right.
These are all transferable skills.
Absolutely. They can help you in any situation.
And the mental exercise of imagining a zombie apocalypse can actually be really helpful.
Yeah, it can prepare you for real-life emergencies.
How so?
Well, it forces you to face those fears and anxieties, but in a safe way. You can think through those worst-case scenarios, figure out the weak points in your plan, and develop ways to deal with stress and uncertainty.
It's like a mental workout.
Exactly.
For your survival instincts.
And by facing those fears head-on, even if it's just in your imagination, you become more resilient, better equipped to handle whatever comes your way.
Right. It's like building that mental muscle memory.
Exactly.
So when a crisis does hit, you're ready.
You're not starting from scratch.
You've been there before, mentally at least.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this whole zombie thing is more than just a fun thought experiment. It can actually help us prepare to the unexpected, both practically and mentally.
That's a valuable tool.
But there's another layer to this too, right?
Okay.
We can't talk about surviving a zombie apocalypse without talking about the ethical side of things.
That's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, and maybe a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because when you take away all the fantastical stuff, the zombie apocalypse forces us to think about what it really means to be human.
Exactly. It raises those big questions.
Yeah.
About the value of life, the limits of compassion.
Right. The choices we're willing to make when it's us or them.
Yeah. Like how far would you go to protect yourself and your loved ones?
Right. Would you harm other survivors to get resources?
Those are tough questions.
They are.
And there are no easy answers.
No. But I guess the zombie genre gives us a way to think about these things in a safe space.
In a way that makes you think.
Yeah, it's like a moral laboratory.
I like that,
where we can explore our ethics.
And figure out what we really value.
And those insights are important not just for a zombie apocalypse.
No, for everyday life, too.
Because even without zombies,
right,
we face ethical dilemmas all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Choices where we have to balance our own needs with the needs of others.
So the more we think about these questions, the better prepared we'll be to make those tough choices.
And to make choices that align with our values.
Exactly.
So in a way, this whole zombie apocalypse thing can actually help us become more ethically aware.
More responsible.
More responsible.
It's a strange paradox, isn't it?
Is.
That something as crazy as a zombie apocalypse can teach us so much about ourselves.
It speaks to the power of storytelling, even when it's based on fantasy. Because in the end, it's through stories that we understand the world.
And our place in it.
And our place in it, yeah. You know, it's kind of crazy how much we can learn from something that doesn't even exist.
It really is.
I mean, who knew zombies could be so insightful?
Well, it just shows you the power of our imaginations, right?
Right.
Like how we can take these wild ideas and explore all these complex issues.
And make it fun.
And have fun doing it, yeah.
So we've really gone deep on this whole zombie survival thing.
Yeah, we have.
We've talked about the practical stuff, the psychology, the community aspect.
The ethical dilemmas even.
Right, the whole shebang. So what's the big takeaway for our listener?
I think the real lesson here isn't about becoming some zombie-killing expert.
Right.
It's about using this whole scenario as a way to think about how we approach any crisis.
Because whether it's a natural disaster,
right,
a pandemic, whatever.
Those core principles are all the same.
Having a plan, building a kit, knowing your environment, strengthening those bonds in your community.
Those are all things we can do right now.
Yeah, to be more resilient.
Exactly, no matter what happens.
It's about being proactive, not just reacting.
Right.
Taking charge of our own safety.
And recognizing that we're not alone.
We need each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful message.
Yeah.
Especially these days when things feel so unpredictable.
Yeah, the world's a crazy place.
It is.
So if there's one thing you should remember from this deep dive, it's this. Don't wait for a crisis to hit. Right.
Before you start thinking about preparedness.
Use this whole zombie thing as a way to get yourself ready. Build up your resilience and connect with your community.
Because in the end, it's not about surviving alone.
It's about surviving together.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Yeah, I think we've covered it all.
But before we go,
I
want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Right, I'm listening.
In a world that feels increasingly chaotic, maybe the real lesson of the zombie apocalypse is that the best way to survive is to be prepared, resourceful, and above all, connected to the people around us.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Because it's those connections that give our lives meaning.
Yeah.
Whether we're facing zombies or just the everyday challenges of being human.
Absolutely. Well said.